Team learning, the engine of the learning organization. Why are teams the fundamental unit of the learning organization? Well, one reason is synergized intelligence. So when we have a lot of people who have a lot of different information, no longer can one person know all that information. We need to pool or synergize all of that intelligence and all of those different perspectives. And that's what teams are able to do. It's no wonder that groups outperformed their most knowledgeable group members 97% of the time in meta-analysis research. Another reason is for information and energy flow. We need the flow of information to move all around an organization, not just from the top down. There are various team structures. We will talk about this. So much research has been done on teams and team effectiveness. Bowman and Deal determined these 6 particular factors. One is that effective teams, they shape purpose. They have a shared purpose, in other words, based on problems and opportunities that cross their paths. They take that purpose and they create specific measurable goals. They are manageable in size, 2 to 20 people. They develop the right mix of expertise. Diversity matters. We'll talk about that. They develop a common commitment to working relationships. This simply means that they have an agreed upon way to determine who will do what role, who will do which tasks. And they have a culture of collective accountability. Collective accountability is incredibly important. It's not to be taken for granted. It means that there's a sense of dependability, that we all can depend on one another in a team that we're working on. It means that we care about one another and we're going to do a good job because we care about one another and because we care about the purpose that we share. So again, in team learning, for it to be effective, there is this common goal or purpose that the team has. The team is its own leadership. It creates those goals, it performs the work to reach the goals, and then it constantly measures whether they're reaching those goals or not, creating a systems circle. Now, Google did a really interesting study on team innovation and productivity. It was called Project Aristotle, and there was a fascinating article in the New York Times about their findings. They studied 180 teams throughout the company for over a year. Now, software engineers are very much encouraged to work together because there were already tons of studies that showed that groups tend to innovate faster. They see mistakes quicker. They find better solutions to problems. It also shows, the research does, that people tend to report higher job satisfaction when they work in teams. So anyway, Google wanted to understand, why were some teams more innovative and productive than others? Did style matter? What norms or styles of behavior mattered on the teams? They were not finding patterns. It says we had lots of data, but there was nothing showing that a mix of specific personality types or skills or backgrounds made any difference. The who part of the equation didn't matter. At least at Google, it didn't. So what did matter? 3 main factors is what they determined of an effective team. One was clear team goals. We've talked about that. Another one was a culture of accountability. We've talked about that. And finally, psychological safety. Now, which one do you think was most important? You probably won't be surprised to learn that far and away, psychological safety was the number 1 most important factor for teams that were effective and innovative and productive. It makes sense if you think about it, because when we're on a team or in a group where we feel safe, where we feel comfortable, where we can be authentic, where we can be vulnerable and be who we are, that's when we're willing to take risks. And all learning requires risk-taking. It certainly requires risk-taking to propose very innovative ideas. I spend the majority of my time working. If I can't be open and honest at work, then I'm not really living, am I? So this new culture of a learning organization where people aren't just taking orders, but they're sharing a space together of psychological safety. So to do this, you have to create a holding environment to create psychological safety. Some teams create psychological safety organically. Others, it takes intentional work. There's a lot of science behind icebreakers, for instance. Google found two behaviors of psychological safety mattered the most. One was that members spoke in roughly the same proportion. They called this equality in distribution of conversational turn-taking. And the second was very high average social sensitivity. So this is empathy, emotional intelligence. So think about nonviolent communication. Those sorts of skills, when team members had them and demonstrated them, that created effective teams. As long as everyone got a chance to talk, the team did well. But if only one person or a small group spoke all the time, the collective intelligence declined. Interesting research. One part of the research that Google did not discover, or talk about anyway, was the issue of diversity on teams. We're going to watch a video of Lania Guinier speaking. She's a Harvard Law professor, and she's speaking specifically about affirmative action in this case, and this was at a conference.
This is not about conventional measures of merit. This is about understanding that the way in which we should reframe or redefine merit is that merit is something we find in groups of people, particularly diverse groups of problem solvers. So I want to recommend to you all a book by Scott Page, and it's called The Difference. Now, Scott Page is a professor of complex systems. This is a complex system. And what he is saying is that diversity of problem-solving groups trumps individual ability. Diversity in problem-solving groups trumps individual ability. So if you were going to look for a group of people to help solve the greenhouse gases, or you were trying to deal with exactly your question, Tavis, the goal would not be to find the smartest person in the room, nor would it be to find the two smartest people in the room. Because the thing about smart people is that they often think alike, and then they get stuck at the same place over and over again. So what you really want is a group of diverse people who approach a problem from very different perspectives, working together collaboratively to solve the problem. And he talks about the fact that if you gave a group of people a test, and you could only hire 2 of them, and John got 7 out of the 10 questions on your test right, and Stephen got 6 out of the 10 questions on your test right, and Jane got 5 out of the 10 questions on your test right, the normal American preference would be to hire Stephen and John, right? They got the 2 highest scores. And what Scott Page says in his book is that you should think about hiring Stephen and Jane. If it turns out that Jane, who only got 5 questions right, got all of the questions right that Stephen and John had gotten wrong. So that together, you have a team of people who can solve the problem, coming with diverse kinds of information.
Leveraging the intelligence of the whole, using diversity to do that. Another aspect of diversity has to do with inclusion at the planning table. So often this happens in nonprofit organizations or governmental organizations often as well, that we think that people of a certain type of intelligence need to be on the board or in the C-suite or at the planning table, so to speak. But if you're an organization or a school board, for instance, that's trying to solve issues of poverty, we're learning that that means that at least one person who lives below the poverty line needs to be on that board. Don't make decisions about us without us. How do we create psychological safety in diverse, and specifically multiracial diverse teams? We have to think about, is everyone feeling safe? Often if we're a member of a dominant group, like a dominant race, for instance, and the majority of the people in the room are white, we might be feeling safe, and we might not realize that maybe not everybody is feeling safe. Here are some factors of openly talking about race and identity. So again, if there's, let's say, only one black person on a team amongst white people, and nobody's ever bringing up or talking about race, that's a good indication that it's not a safe environment. The next one is being aware of microaggressions. Microaggressions sometimes can seem harmless, but they create an atmosphere that is not psychologically safe. And then when something happens that is not psychologically safe, someone says something, being skilled at objectively identifying unsafe behavior and making a request for respect and safety. Being able to identify the feelings and needs at play and making a request with respect. So let's think about teams as circles. There are many different formations of teams. There are a lot of advantages to teams working in a circle, and I mean both metaphorically and physically in a circle. One is that they exercise consent decision-making, equality of position. Physically, when we're in a circle, we can see one another. We can see that we're equal. We're not looking at someone's back, which does not feel safe. We're not looking at someone talking at us all the time. So there's this sense of equality where we are more likely to speak equally and make decisions together. Rounds of talking. Skilled facilitators know when there is a topic at hand or a question that's being asked that we can go in rounds where one person at a time contiguously will speak or respond around the circle. It's amazing what happens when you use rounds. Often people who are more introverted or who otherwise might not have spoken up will share very important thoughts and information when you use rounds, which really only works when you're in a circle. So what have we learned? 1, make your organization structured in circles or teams. Everyone should be on a team. Teams require diversity to increase intelligence. Embed time for teamwork in the organizational structure. Schools are a really good example. Teachers used to work alone primarily in their classroom with their children, and we're learning that teachers need to work in teams. The organization should have organization-wide vision and goals, but teams decide on their specific goals. Teams and team members need tools and training to maximize personal mastery, i.e. emotional intelligence. It's important to understand that the role of the leader changes when you have teamwork, effective teamwork in place. So is everyone in your organization a part of a team or a circle that has a clear aim? Is there a culture of accountability? Then you as a leader don't have to manage people so much. They're managing themselves, and you become a facilitator. The psychology of effective teams is that we all care about each other and we're working for one another. For you, I will.